Hello, UCAR. Peter Christensen here, coming to you from the CEO's desk. A couple of videos ago, we talked about the short-term leaseback addendum, and I told you some changes were coming, and those changes are now official. So we're going to we're not preview, it's already out there. This is actually in circulation now. And the UAR has done a nice write-up on this, so we'll link to that in the comments so you can check out that. But we're going to run through some of the changes. Now, I told you back then that some of these fundamental concepts we were discussing in that video, they're not changing. Nothing fundamental in the operation of this form has changed, just some clarifying language, a little bit different route to get to these concepts. So first off, section 3, that's what we talked about in the last video, the utilities section. Remember I told you that the seller was the default. So if none of those boxes were checked saying buyer would take over these utilities, seller would be responsible to pay those. Still the case. However, now there are boxes for buyer and seller in the new form, so that really the idea was get people talking about it, because sometimes this was getting overlooked in the old format. Concept is still the same. If you don't check any of the boxes, seller is still responsible to pay those utilities, those payments. But now we're hoping to incite a conversation as you have to choose between the two instead of just selecting the buyer. Okay, that's first and probably the biggest change. Section 7 deals with the condition of the property. Now, this simply says that now, seller, you're a tenant, and buyers purchase this property. So if something goes wrong with the property, the seller will notify the buyer that some damage has occurred. It also has language in there making it clear that buyer needs to get seller's consent before making non-emergency alterations. So buyer buys the property even though seller's still there, excited about it, and wants to start ripping out carpet, wallpapering. Do people do wallpaper? Isn't wallpaper making a comeback? And you got to have sellers living there, and so you got to have the seller's consent before you start uprooting with their living space to make alterations. And then section 15, this is not a major one, but it's one that we're always surprised needs to be put in there. We kind of thought it was going on already. But I guess in the purchase process, there's not any time you give buyer and sellers information, like contact information, right? And when you're now a landlord-tenant relationship, you might need to get a hold of each other. And so this says buyer and seller will give each other contact information. And then section 16 had a little alteration, really just making it clear that changes will need to be done in writing, and alerting the buyer that you need to check with your lender before you make alterations to this, and make sure it still fits with what your lender found acceptable. So you can change the term and stuff, which might affect how your lender feels about the loan. So that's it. Really, again, nothing fundamental changed about the operation of this, the concepts of this form, but a little clearer formatting for you. Remember, this is not legal advice. This is legal information only. If you need specific legal advice, please contact your attorney. Thanks for tuning in.